Hey, don't touch me. Don't touch me. Don't touch me. Relax, relax, relax. Keep that up. Keep up. Keep it up. Yeah, turn your back away. That's right. Leave me alone. You're bugging me. Old weirdos.
Talk about shock and awe, and I think it's fair to say we definitely need more logic, more of an honest, calm conversation, and a lot less of the hyperbolic, sensationalistic, emotional-driven, fear, trauma-based mind control, which clearly a lot of people are going through. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Luke Rudowski of WeAreChange.org. A lot of absolutely crazy and ridiculous news to get into as we're dealing with astronomical levels of hypocrisy, dereliction of duty, and of course high-level criminality perpetrated against you and any other freedom-oriented individuals. Now, before we get into that, plus a lot more, we wanted to remind everyone that there have been a lot of protests in a lot of places that have been significantly underplayed by the mainstream media. And whether it's Croatia, Canada, even New York City, there has been an onslaught of individuals standing up for their own personal liberties and freedoms without needing government-approved permission slips. Again, there's also a wild video from Australia that we can't show you here. We're going to be doing a breakdown of this on LukeUncensored.com later on today, by the way. But before even talking about that, it's important to also note that there was a pro-establishment, a pro-procedure demonstration in Paris, France that absolutely flopped and had very little people come out to it, highlighting, of course, the clear disparity between public policy and what many people are demonstrating for in the streets right now. There's a big difference between the two, and it is definitely worth noting, worth talking about, and worth having a serious conversation about, since, of course, our reality is shaped by our perception, and our perception is being shaped by social media, big tech algorithms, timelines, news feeds that are carefully curated to create an image, an idea, a viewpoint that is very convenient for the current ruling establishment. You should especially be careful of that, not only when watching television, but also being online. And when you get out there to the real world, you find out that the world is a totally different place than the way it's portrayed to you, and that there's a lot more hope, a lot more happiness, a lot more freedom than they want you to believe there is. And again, this is a worldwide movement from Spain to South Africa to the Netherlands to the United Kingdom to Chicago to Puerto Rico to Mexico City, Argentina, California, Trinidad, you name it. Chile, Melbourne, India, New Delhi. There is something happening here that is definitely worth noting and talking about. Justin Trudeau, pictured here in blackface, the Canadian Prime Minister, has called these protests a plague and is promising to crack down on them. This as yet another more prominent photo of him coming out wearing blackface just came out, all on the eve of the Canadian national election, which is going to be happening very soon. Now, whether it's these guys trying to control every aspect of your existence, we have to understand that these crackdowns have been initiated in other parts of the world, like Australia, where police officers have been accused of going after not just peaceful protesters, but also journalists, professionals who are trying to report on the scenes, as well as enacting their abuse on already immobilized individuals that are no threats to them, like this woman who was continued to be pepper sprayed even though she was on the ground and no threat to anyone. That, of course, was an elderly woman, but to the Australian police, whether you're a dog in a rescue kennel or an old lady, it doesn't matter to them. The Australian officers have been following absolutely cutthroat, ridiculous, and extremely aggressive made-up decrees against the Australian people, as even now officially U.S. representatives have been calling for sanctions against Australia for their treatment of protesters. We a few days ago, we said it's very interesting that the United States is not saying anything about the absolute evisceration of any personal freedoms in Australia. But surprisingly, here we are today with predominantly House Republicans calling for sanctions against the country that is now routinely abusing its citizens to control every aspect of their existence. We shouldn't also be kidding ourselves, as of course there's also politicians in the United States that are set to try to copy Australia and to implement some of their insane policies. As U.S. Congressman Thomas Macy tweeted, quote, "We're 18 months, 2 presidents, $5 trillion, 3 procedures," I can't say what he really said, 3 procedures, and a shredded constitution into slowing the spread. And I personally think he definitely has a point there, to say the least, and that's why I want to talk about that plus a lot more. As in today's exclusive video, we will be talking about some more troubling developments that sadly we cannot get into on this broadcast. We're going to be talking about that plus a lot more, all exclusively on LukeUncensored.com. If you haven't signed up yet, what are you waiting for? And if you're curious, the shirt that I'm wearing today says the people in power may change, but the war machine stays the same, with a nice highlight picture of Biden, Kissinger, and Bush all sitting nicely close together, appropriately with a drone flying over their heads, as represented by the same one that just took the lives of 7 children in Afghanistan from the orders of the Biden administration. And of course, lied about it. The mainstream media covered up those lies, regurgitated it, and it all came out to be another lie and scam. Now, in related lies and scam news, we have this footage coming out, which seemingly seems like just a normal video from a few years ago. But no, this is from San Francisco, prominently highlighting the mayor of one of America's biggest city partying, dancing inside of a nightclub without any masks, without any government mandates, which is all hunky-dory if it wasn't for the mayor being an absolute Karen surrounding this sickness and implementing around 37 of her own declarations regarding this sickness. What has been the response of this mayor that has been lecturing people about believing the science and protecting people? By the way, I love how it's believing science instead of practicing science, which is the act of questioning things. But that's a whole nother point here. As the mayor of San Francisco came out in response to being questioned about this, saying that what she did was okay, that she broke her own mask rules because, quote, "We don't need the fun police," and she was feeling the spirit, and, quote, "I wasn't thinking about a mask," as opposed to the countless number of citizens and children that are routinely punished for doing the same. She literally believes she was completely justified in violating her own indoor mask mandate policy. Now, I think it's fair to say that this kind of thinking is just as delusional as it is cruel, but it has been very prevalent amongst the ruling class, the ruling establishment, many powerful politicians and celebrities that have been skirting the rules that they have been calling for. This also perfectly represented by the Emmys, which CBS was just running a few hours ago, as they were declaring, almost as if they were rubbing it in your face, that, quote,
"We are going to celebrate and party, but while we're doing that, we're absolutely following all the official health and safety guidelines that some really smart people asked us to do to keep us safe from COVID."
Look at me with my blunders on as we get to do whatever we want as you are a little petty, pathetic slave.
As they literally had their servants in masks, once again, as all the celebrities that were calling for you to wear masks, calling for you to be locked down, calling for more restrictions on your life, live their life freely without any of those. No social distancing, no masks, as they said their venue was outdoors when it clearly wasn't. This hypocritical theater was also recently perfectly portrayed by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and her ginger boyfriend, who of course also didn't have to wear masks, as of course their servants were, and as the celebritards get to do whatever they want, flaunt whatever laws and mandates they're telling you to obey. What's happening to our children in schools, where they're facing the most restrictive, draconian, absolutely insane, creepy assault and attack on their lives. Columbia University just imposed new restrictions for students that had to comply with taking a medical procedure for 100% of their attendees, as they're going through a surveillance testing grid system that clearly still doesn't work, and many schools have still been shut down in response to. Now, it's also important to note that a lot of these rules are ridiculous, and to have one class of people, the poor people, have follow it while the rich people and establishment people don't have to, is just a slap in the face for anyone paying attention, since of course many of these mandates, like the 6 feet social distance rule, according to the former FDA head, is, quote, arbitrary and, quote, nobody knows where it came from. Where's the science? Where's the logic here? There isn't a lot of it. There's a lot of propaganda. There's a lot of disinformation. There's a lot of fear-mongering. And there's a lot of punishing of individuals for trying to just live their lives. Now, what is this all about? Now, according to the government of Australia, which issued very similar epithets to Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada currently right now, a lot of these mandates, a lot of these passport systems are about rewarding people who comply with the system and punishing those who do not. As Justin Trudeau said himself, the domestic passport systems are, quote, all about rewarding certain freedoms to people who have done the right thing, and that those who still resist simply won't get to enjoy those same freedoms. It's also important to note here that freedoms are not granted to individuals by states. Freedoms are inherited and inalienable rights that should never be taken away by an overly political, aggressive, angry state that doesn't even follow the rules that they implement against you. CNN, just when you thought they couldn't outdo themselves in their absolute lunacy. Sorry, let me cut off Mr. Potato Head here. CNN, just when you thought they couldn't reach a new low, just released a news article and had an entire segment saying that the term doing your own research is helping spread misinformation. Yes, not being a total jackboot licking, brown nosing, obeying, compliant slave, not believing everything that the establishment regurgitates against you, doing your own homework, critically thinking is a part of misinformation. I mean, just how more Orwellian, duplicitous, and insane do you have to get where there's literal entire PR teams working against the term do your own research? And you know what I'm going to leave you with at the end of this video? Do your own research. I'm not a medical professional. Do your own homework. Do your own research. Do your own diligence. Talk to your friends, family, loved ones, experts, professionals in the field, and don't just blindly believe someone because they're on the boob tube, especially if they're a unique potato head or a sellout celebritard that will do anything for a buck. You and you alone are responsible for yourself, your body, and remember, the mainstream media is telling you not to do your own research, to believe them when they have been wrong so many times and lied through their teeth. There's a big correction by the New York Times that we're going to be talking about on LukeUncensored.com with another I Told You So segment, so I hope to see you later on there today for our second video. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, and this is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on WeAreChange.org.